So I was not on Monday because I was chairing the Measure U Community Advisory Committee. And so I had the pleasure.
What even is that?
I know, it's this thing and like, whatever. Like, I know it. I should really get my priorities in check. So, of course, I have the fun, and I always say this, I love listening to episodes I'm not on. So I had the fun of listening on Tuesday. And so as I started like tweeting as I was going through, and there was a part in the middle of the episode where you all were going through the contributions to the Yes on A campaign.
Mm-hmm. Strong mayor.
Yeah, strong mayor. And you mentioned some, lawyer named Tina Thomas. And I was like, oh my gosh, I finally know someone that Dave doesn't already know. And I was so excited to be able to say, this never happens to me, but I actually happen to know who that is. Like the connection, it's not just a random, attorney. She happens to be the vice chair of the Steinberg Institute. And so she is on his board.
The Steinberg
Institute, you say?
The Steinberg Institute.
Is this like the Lebowski Little Achievers type thing? Like what?
So the Steinberg Institute is a mental health, nonprofit organization that friended the show. Mayor Darrell Steinberg started. And so, it has a board, as nonprofits are wont to do, and she serves as the vice chair on the board. And so I was able to provide that context of just like how that's all connected.
There she is, Tina Thomas. She looks very friendly. Wow.
She is looking a little severe in this picture, but maybe that's just the picture.
Skylar, do you want to call this up?
Sure.
Always fun for our friends on the
YouTube. Our YouTube viewers can get a good look at this.
All right. So there, if you go to Our Board part of the About Us tab of the Steinberg Institute page, you get this gallery list of the board.
Can I say Darrell looks very youthful here?
Yeah, that's a good photo of him.
He looks pretty good.
I'm not a hater. That's a good photo. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's a good angle. Like, he should wear that shirt again. Haircut is crispy. Mm-hmm. Like, jacket
I'm
is
a youthful.
Right. There's like
pro tempore of 40 million people.
There's less like sadness in his smile than normally when he smiles.
Right. I think Jerry Brown lied to him when he said that the best job he ever had was being mayor of Oakland. I think Jerry just wanted to have Darrell suffer for 8 years and was like, no, you'll love being mayor of your own city. It'll be awesome. You're really going to love it.
It's the perfect, oh gosh, what's her name? From 2020. She was known, why am I forgetting her name? But she was known for the open mouth smile. And so it actually, they tell you when you're trying to look amazing, you turn to the side to give that side profile, and then you smile with your mouth slightly open, and it looks better. And so we have that going. Barbara Walters. I was like, I don't know why it took me so long, but that was the Barbara.
I didn't know she knew.
You got to do it right.
Anyway, I need selfie help. So folks, listeners.
Babs was very, very, very serious about her angles. She was the originator of the Get Your Angles Right. Yeah.
So Darrell looks good. I want to know who this guy below him is. It appears that his name is Tom Incel. Is this the red pill?
This
board member.
Yeah, that's a rough one, man.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It's
that's a name.
That's the 4chan guy that every board needs.
Right. Yeah, the guy who's running Darrell Steinberg's 4chan board for sure. Mm-hmm. The DS board.
Well, Mr. Incel.
Yeah.
Right under him, we have our friend Tina Thomas, the very generous patron of Steinberg's campaign for A.
Not doing the Babs thing at all.
She looks like she is about to give you a fucking talking to that you will not soon forget. In this,
or
she's going to dress you down.
$5,000.
Or $25,000.
She'll give you one of the two.
Now, after this is my personal favorite member of this board, and it is perfect that this guy is on the board of the Darrell Steinberg Institute.
Okay.
Here we have the treasurer, whose name appears to be Rich Lib.
The treasurer.
The treasurer of the Steinberg Institute, Rich Lib.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, it's perfect. That might not be how you pronounce it.
I'm going with it. It's too perfect not to.
It is. It really is.
So it's a rich liberal on your board that is your treasurer.
He's your treasurer.
I love it.
Yeah. No, this is great. This is great.
Some of us were just like made to do the work we do, like
seriously.
Oh, when I pulled this up after Flo sent it to us and saw this dude's name is Rich Lib, I almost fell out of my chair.
This is the Usain Bolt of boards.
The Steinberg Institute, yes.
This guy is the Usain Bolt of treasurers.
Yes. Of nonprofit treasurer boards.
Usain Bolt couldn't be slow, right? Like,
right.
No, his name is Bolt. Like,
Rich Lib. I land on the right side of most social issues, but I'm fiscally conservative. Rich Lib.
It's too much.
Oh my
All
God.
right. Do you guys want to get started?
Yeah, but thank you, both of you, for that.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It was beautiful.
Anytime. No, not anytime. This time only, actually, Dave, because this is the only time that will happen.
Never want to think about the Steinberg Institute again.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Skylar.
And Flo.
And no Shannon today.
No Shannon today.
I'm starting to wonder when we're going to have both Shannon and Flo on the same show at the same time.
I assume that we'll have the COVID vaccine by then.
I was going to say we're Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana.
That's exactly. People are going to start thinking you're the same person, just like in disguise.
Oh, no.
It's like, what can't they do, But no, Shannon is actually still not feeling well. Good news is she actually does have a day that damn gallbladder is coming out, and we're very excited about it.
Yes.
She's dealing with some other stuff. I really want to just leave it to Shannon to share with people kind of what's up with her. But she's dealing with frustrations, and it sucks to think about. I'm thinking about it right now, and I'm hating it.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate to think about it.
Hate to think about it. Shannon, we love you. We miss you. Please get better. And we're hoping to have you on our Monday show, which we'll publish on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
everybody put that good energy into the air for Shannon.
Put claws up.
Claws out
Claws,
for Shannon.
Do we
have a sound effect for claws up?
Certainly not a claw, but oh no, not cause out. Okay.
Not cause out. Claws out.
I rescind my
claw.
Okay. Well, we are lucky today to have our good friend Sadalia King on. Sadalia, you asked me to introduce you as a government relations professional, but you're really just a friend of mine and Flo's for years. And I've seen you fight many different political battles, both locally and on the state level. and I'm very excited to have you on. How are you?
Hey, yeah, I'm hanging in there. Thanks for having me on the show. The last time I talked to Flo, like she low-key kind of threatened me. She's like, like we're gonna come for you to get you on the show. So I knew it was out. It was coming. It was any day now.
Come for us, lest we send for you.
Flo never even told me that she threatened you. So I kind of out of the blue reached out.
I troll for a living. What do you like, Dave? Come on.
But I'm glad we got you on.
It was full big sister effect. Like I will push you around, mess with you every little bit. Yep. Throw elbows.
Yeah, it's your hazing now that you're a senior fellow now in NELP. Congratulations, by the way.
Hell week.
Well, not quite. Our graduation's not until what is that? October 10th, I think.
Okay, I'm writing this down.
Oh yeah, it's like somewhere in mid-October.
Is this like
no?
Zoom
I will
hangout?
send you an invite.
Okay.
Yes, it's Zoom. It's still Zoom.
I
So yeah, I expect both of you to be there.
I nominated you.
Both of y'all to be there. Yeah, that's sort of my point. Like, I blame you for all of it.
Welcome to hell.
Welcome to hell.
No, but Sadalia is, I don't know, man. Like, you're one of my favorite people in the world. I'm sure Flo probably feels the same way. How long have you two known each other?
So the sad thing is, I don't know. There's no origin story. Sadalia and Breonna just kind of like exist in my life and have always existed in my life. As far like there definitely is a time when I didn't know her, but I don't know what that time is, and I don't actually know how all of this came together. Sadalia's just kind of always been there, and the same thing is true for Breonna Osborne. Shout out to my baby sister. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. Sometime in Sacramento history, we became friends, and it probably started with some bullying or something. Like I don't. Just dive right into the deep end.
That feels really correct.
Yeah.
And possibly through Jane. I feel like I met a lot of our network of folks through Jane. And Jane's my sorority sister.
That could have been it. Jane
I remember like we went.
Folks.
Yeah.
The professor who came on to talk to us about what defunding the police actually means. Now at TCU, and we miss her dearly. Jane, come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get you, Jane.
I'm trying to think. Like, I think my first real hangout with you, I seem to remember a karaoke bar where you were just kind of glaring at everyone. That might be.
Yeah, I remember.
That sounds like almost every karaoke bar experience I've ever had.
I mean,
right, so Skylar's already my people.
Sadalia's credit, she was like the most well-behaved person there and just like not impressed by anyone else.
Why is that? That's Sadalia's claim to fame. Sadalia King, the most well-behaved person there.
The look, right? Yeah.
Right.
We're talking about the look, which we mentioned, I think, on Jane's episode.
Yes.
Good. It's all coming.
If anything, I distinctly remember being taken against my will that night and then just staying out for a really long time. So I was just very much in a particular mood. And definitely remember Dr. Deborah Cooper, who I met through Jane, through the Science Fellows program.
Shout out to my soon-to-be neighbor.
What?
Really?
Deborah's moving to your neighbor?
Yeah. It's a takeover.
So sorry, listeners, but we need to cover this right now.
Breaking news.
Low key. What?
Yep, I got a new neighbor coming.
Yeah, Deborah was a part of that night, as was our dear friend Hottie, and it was all of us getting you into trouble alongside us. So yeah,
I was not pleased.
Well,
that's all right.
Was Eduardo there?
No, he wasn't. It was actually like
how was there a karaoke meetup and Eduardo wasn't there?
I have no idea. It was Hottie invited me out like very late to shady. This is really taking us off track, but
It is.
yeah.
Shout out to all of Sacramento. We
Yeah.
just named all of you. Is there anybody else
We
who we
named
need to give a shout out to?
Everyone we've ever met in downtown.
Everyone we ever met.
Yeah. Anyone who's ever worked near the Capitol, and their spouses, basically. Okay. So let's get started on the episode. This is a great start, though. Sorry, I'm gonna have to like change the tone a bit, but you know, Sadalia, I have seen you on a lot of the same fights in recent years here in Sacramento, relating to Black liberation and criminal justice reform. I know that after Stephon Clark was killed by Sac PD, a lot of our mutual friends, a lot of folks kind of ended up becoming sort of folks who were stepping up and speaking on the issue, including you, including Flo, including a lot of your friends who were kind of in this group called The Table. I think I'm allowed to discuss this a little bit these days. And it was, can one of you tell me what The Table was? Tell the listeners.
Sadalia.
Sure. So the table came together because I'm sure everyone's like well aware that like there was obviously like Black Lives Sacramento, but there was also a lot of infighting going on there, and it was very much exclusive to the folks who were trying to organize in that space. And is you're either in that space or close to it, and then you were aware that there was a lot of turmoil. But they were still putting on events. They were still organizing within the Sacramento community. But ultimately, there was also a group of folks who didn't feel like they wanted to get involved with the messiness or the hierarchy or power dynamics with it. It just seemed like a really toxic situation. And so, if anything, folks wanted to just take a step outside of that and formulate a way how to address the needs that the community was seeing in the aftermath of Stephon Clark, because there wasn't that like clear, concise idea or a pathway. There was a lot of movements happening in the streets, but not a lot of push for policy or just trying to be inclusive to everyone. And then also we were kind of looking to have like a more centralized space where in addition to BL and SAC, but there was like all these other organizations as well that were also either Black led or Black founded, and try to kind of consolidate that and all work as a team, as a collective to achieve some of those goals. So, and also all these folks were friends, or they knew of each other because we see each other in the streets or wherever. So we kind of coalesced around that same idea, and we're really fiercely protective of that space to make sure that there wasn't any of that toxic energy or doubt. Like, we all knew that we're in this together. There was a real sense of solidarity in that space. So it was through the table that and just really excellent leadership. Like, I can't speak highly enough of that entire experience. But it was through that
can I take a moment?
Like, we saw.
I'm sorry, Sadalia. Could I take a moment and just like let listeners know that the name The Table comes from the concept of, if the folks who are creating the laws and running the show won't give us a seat at the table, we're going to bring our own fucking table, right? Mm-hmm. And I always loved that about you all. Keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And we actually put that to practice. Like, we came up with a list of demands, and we presented the idea of the measure you commissioned to City Council. And I remember reading the letter, and then the Mayor Steinberg stopped me like mid-sentence, and he's like, "Yes, of course we're going to do this. Like, I will put you in contact with whoever." And he was like pointing at people to make sure you follow up with such and such. And eventually I did finish the letter, and then we had it planned out that we're going to have our other leaders from other orgs supporting the position. But again, it was just like an excellent way to like of strategy, implementation, negotiation. And eventually we did see the Measure U Commission come to fruition, which Flo now leads. So like we got one really good win out of all of it. We got that table, and we literally have one of our folks at the seat of that table, at the head.
That's true.
Of that
That's
table.
like a table created by. Interesting. I never even thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still kind of like, I kind of feel like if we can do that, I'm like, we can do so much more. That was just the first
Hell
piece. Yeah. And then even after that, the Fab 40 march that we put together, and even in the aftermath with like the folks who were arrested and staying out really late, making sure that folks were fine.
Yeah.
And that made news, like it got folks' attention.
So just some background on that for listeners. That was soon after Anne-Marie Schubert went on national television and not only said that they would not be charging the cops, the SAC PD officers who killed Stephon Clark, who was unarmed in his grandmother's backyard. They shot him in the back. Not only would she not be charging them, but she spent, I was at that press conference, she spent close to an hour assassinating his character. Absolutely disgusting. And so the table put together a very secret march, ended up going through one of the richest neighborhoods in Sacramento near the Central Grid called the Fab 40s. I loved it. It was amazing. But one thing that, you know, was very, I think, astonishing was just how aggressive the cops were during that. And I, you know, I mean, both of you were there. I remember watching all of you, you know, leading it, and it was just, it was beautiful and scary, and then it just turned to scary. And eventually it ended up with 80 plus people getting kettled illegally on a bridge, not just demonstrators who included religious leaders, you know, a friend of
just
ours.
Real quick, kettling is when the cops surround you so you can't leave, give you dispersal orders that you can't follow, and then arrest you for not dispersing.
That's exactly it. And so they covered both of the exits from this bridge, thank you, Skylar, and told them to leave. And there's like, other than jumping off this bridge, there's nowhere you can go. So they arrested all of these demonstrators who were left, as well as many members of the media. Basically SAC PD was found to be, you know, doing illegal behavior. They ended up losing a bunch of taxpayer money. This is all of us paying that for their aggressive illegal behavior. But yeah, I mean, this was a very important march, and I think it was an important time in Sacramento. And yes, so this was put on and organized by the table, which is something that a lot of people didn't even know what it was at the time. Please keep going.
Yeah, and that was on purpose. That was very purposeful. We wanted to be on the side of secrecy, so then folks wouldn't, like, we purposely didn't even want to have like a confirmed leader. Sort of also following what like BLM, like the organization kind of follows too. So it was just really important that to us that we try to think outside the box. Like, how can we make the most impact? How do we draw attention to these issues? Because there's a large group of Sacramento that sits very comfortable, while a whole nother side of Sacramento is very much in pain. So how can we bring that pain closer to home so then folks can understand it? Like, if you can see it, you can't get away from it. It's right there in your face. You're going to have to deal with it. So following the money trail, and a lot of money from that neighborhood flows to the pockets of some of the most influential people and organizations in Sacramento. So if we're standing at your door, if we're in your neighborhood, if we're in your streets and we're taking up space, we're taking up the time where you sleep. Like, this is going to draw attention, and calls are going to be made. Like, these are folks who's like, oh, well, I can make a call and make things happen. And that was ultimately our aim. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that was the table.
I loved the table. I love the concept of it. I wanted to, for this episode, I wanted us to discuss kind of through a local and state lens, something that's happened on a national level. Breonna Taylor, right? Killed at 26 years old on March 13th of this year. Police busted into her home and shot her and killed her. Was it yesterday?
Yes.
It was yesterday, yes.
So just on Wednesday of this week, basically the DA decided that there would be no charges brought against the officers directly related to her shooting. The only charges brought against any officer was for bullets that ended up going through neighbors' apartments. And again, just to paint the picture for, and like, I assume all of our listeners know about this, but Breonna Taylor was a woman sleeping with her boyfriend one night in her own apartment, and the Louisville PD busted down her door and ended up her boyfriend, I believe, defended themselves because they didn't know who was at the door.
The cops didn't announce themselves and were in plain clothes.
Yeah,
right.
I think there was only one person in the entire complex who said maybe the cops announced themselves once, and it wasn't even that loud. But everyone else said, I never heard the cops announce themselves. And they ended up shooting and killing Breonna. So this is kind of the space that we're in this week. And we're kind of in a moment. There's something striking to me about this too, is that this happened on the same day, 65 years later, after Emmett Till's killers were announced free too. Can we talk about this? Can we talk about what justice means and why this isn't it? And this is, I guess, Sadalia, you can start, but this is for Flo as well, because you've been on the front lines of these fights here locally as well.
So I love that you stopped, or you stopped at the historical nature of this, because one of the things that I was kind of contemplating as of late was just how this is the same fight happening over and over again. And my parents were both born in 1951. So Emmett Till died in 1955. And my grandmother was like in her mid to late 20s when she had my dad, and he was her firstborn child. So if anything, I can't imagine what she felt like at that time, like having like a 4-year-old and you're like, this boy is mangled on the front page of like every major newspaper. And my grandmother, she left Shreveport, Louisiana to continue her education in California. So it was just her and her sister traveling across the state. And so like sending her children back to the South with family, thinking that would, like, the family would be able to keep them safe, like just all of those things that she did. She definitely went back often, but also like carrying the son of hers. So I just can't help but to think that like that maybe that was a moment for her. And then like fast forward, and then some of my older friends, or actually with my mom and my dad, it was like the 65 when there was a riot in LA over police brutality. And then in the 90s, for my older friends, it's Rodney King.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was Trayvon Martin. And then for my
That
younger
was what,
cousins,
2004?
it's now
2012, I believe it was.
2012. Oh my God.
12. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was in college then. And I remember I had to like write a paper on Trayvon Martin or something. Like, I remember that. Like, I was like, oh, I have to do homework now, and this is the only thing on my mind, so I'm gonna write about that.
Yeah.
So, and then for my younger cousins now, it's George Floyd, and it's just like, again, like this is multiple generations of folks, all folks who are close to me, and we're all kind of living through this very similar experience. And honestly, nothing much has changed. It's still like pro law enforcement. It's still like these very powerful unions and associations for law enforcement preventing any real change from happening. And folks are still taking to the streets, and we're still seeing very similar destruction happening because these folks' voices aren't being heard. So, if anything, I'm just sort of like, okay, when I think about it in that context, I'm just like, I'm not sure what else we could do differently. But the thing is, even though I'm not sure what other options there are, the option to not do anything doesn't exist.
Right.
And so, yeah, so if anything, that's sort of the space where my head has been as of late. Just really, and according to Nell, like context is my number 5 strength. So it makes sense, the whole reason why I'm really settling on that. But me trying to unwrap like all these pieces from the past and like trying to anticipate what we can do in the future, that's where my headspace has been. And ultimately, like really finding justice here, because Emmett Till's headstone still gets shot at to this day.
Yeah.
They have to replace it regularly. And every once in a while, there'll be a news story and they'll take a picture of the headstone and it has a bunch of bullet holes in it. And that was a young boy. And I'm pretty sure some of the people who were even shooting at it wasn't even alive when he was alive.
Yeah. Can we take a moment and, Flo, could you tell the story of Emmett Till? I don't think I gave the context of who he was or what happened.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Emmett Till was a boy who was from the Midwest, from Chicago, and had gone down south for the summer to spend some time with relatives. And while he was there, he was at a convenience store. And the allegation is that he whistled at a white woman. And so, you know, I know that sounds pretty benign, although... How
old was this kid again?
He was 14.
12? I thought,
he was 14. And he, yeah, so, you know, it sounds benign, but also not, because, you know, a guy who just asked someone in Central Park to put her dog on a leash like the rules said she was supposed to, so that he wouldn't disturb the birds, ended up with the police called on them. So, you know, it's still a crime to be Black in America in many instances, but he was alleged to have whistled at this white woman. And I think that it's really important to add context to that, because years later, she's still alive. And has since recanted the story, and is also not in, you know, has not been brought to any sort of accountability on that with the Till family. So later that evening, you know, some men came to the house, you know, dragged him out of the house and lynched him. And so his body was mutilated. And I think a lot of probably the listeners know I have a thing about, I don't watch the videos. I've never watched the video because I'm not, I think it's traumatizing, and I am Black and I live in that body and I don't need those images haunting my dreams. I'll read the accounts, but I know what happened, right? I'm not the one who needs to be convinced. Right. But I always say that, and I'm not also not, you know, prosecuting this, right? So I think that's important to be able to have the evidence, even though it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. But I always shout out Mamie Till, because although, you know, there certainly is a challenge of putting Black pain on display, what Mamie Till really did, the strength and courage she had to say, no, America, you're going to reckon with what you did to my baby. And it was, as Sadalia said, on the front page of most major, like most newspapers, like it became national news. And what she said was basically, you're harming us and you're not going to pretend it's not happening. And I think about that because that was then somebody whipping out their cell phone and saying,
yeah,
look, this is what's going on. I'm going to, right? And so I really appreciate, in through the lens of history, her being able to, if nothing else, document. And my hope is that, 100 years from now, somebody's telling at least a slightly different story in shock and horror about how terrible it was back in the 50s, and not recognizing that the 50s and 2020 are like almost 70 years apart, but just being like, remember when those old people did terrible things and it was awful back then, right? And being able to say, like, we don't do that anymore. But that really is kind of the story of what happened. And there are so many, as Sadalia said, parallels to the way things are set up now and what people are experiencing. I thought I wasn't actually going to comment on it. I figured we might talk about it on the show, but I really wasn't going to say anything publicly. And I happened to be, taking a break and was like scrolling on social media and saw a friend had posted this 1-sentence summary of what had happened that it was like so succinct and so chilling that I was like, I gotta repost this. And it was, a cop murdered a Black woman and only got charged for the bullets that missed. And there's just something so chilling about recognizing that that's it. And I think it's a really interesting juxtaposition between then and now, because if you think about how all this ties in also to our national politics, right? So Daniel Cameron was the DA. He is a 34-year-old Black man who is a Republican, who spoke at the Republican National Convention just a month ago. And he is Mitch McConnell's protege. And so, just thinking about what that means, just thinking about the way that this entire case was approached, and just recognizing that any evidence that they were using to be able to decide was presented by the DA. So what kind of case did the DA make if that's all they could come up with?
Yep.
And just recognizing that, like, if we're really talking about institutional power, we say this all the time, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Everybody who shares your hair care products does not necessarily share your values and your politics. And so it's the same institutional power, even if you do your little diversity campaign and change the face of who's there, if you don't change the practice of what you're doing.
No. I think a lot of people are trying to view the Breonna Taylor situation through the elections, and I think it's difficult to do it that way, because I don't think a lot of Democrats are going to do what needs to be done.
No.
I think that there is a lot of discussion on, like, oh, well, how can we train them better? How can we do this and that better? But those obviously are not the answers, right?
Nobody who's taking this seriously is having that discussion in good faith.
Yeah. What did the day that Stephon Clark was killed, what was the statement that Steinberg put out, Flo? I think you remember it.
I'm not in a position to second guess the police.
I'm not in a position to second guess the police. And politicians are never in a position, they feel, to second guess the police. Mainstream media historically has felt the same way, that, well, they're authorities, they give us press releases, they let us know what we should write about criminals, and we'll post their, the photos of these, people who've been arrested and talk about it. And, like, that's part of our job. We're responding to these authorities. Little by little, I think it's turning around. I hope that, like, we're helping turn around that conversation with other journalists, that, like, no, these are stakeholders and they lie. They have entire press teams designed to lie and protect their staff who shoot and kill people. But I just wanted to, like, the day that Daryl said that, I remember I was at a party at, what's that big hotel next to the Kings Arena?
The
Kimpton?
Sawyer?
The
Kimpton Sawyer, yeah.
Yeah, Kimpton Sawyer. You're both correct.
Together we got it, right?
I was at a party for the new, I guess it was the new Senate Pro Tem. And I remember like David Garibaldi was painting like upside down paintings of like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and stuff. And
I can't stand that fucking dude, man.
he literally
I fucking hate that
doing
guy.
that. And like nothing.
Is there a story there?
Nothing against this.
What, me and Garibaldi?
Yeah.
Okay, so I used to work like hotel events and used to have to like work these functions all the time where like things like Dave's talking about, and he would get invited to like every one. And just like, he's not that he's not talented, like he's a talented guy, but watching this dude who like Steinberg and his friends like decided is this really great artist or whatever.
He's like jumping and
put on Maroon 5 and like prance around the stage and like do this like weird magic show / painting thing. And like and he's doing shit like, you know, like Michelle Obama.
So
and all of the fucking
angles
like,
and stuff, and you're like, "What's he painting? I don't know." And he
whoa,
finishes
yeah,
it,
what's happening, man?
and then the final twirl.
I love it.
Taking the painting upside down and putting it up, and it's like Chelsea Clinton.
Voila.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And like fucking Rich Lib is like out of his seat. Yes.
And so is Flo Kofer. You can call me Bubblegum. I don't care. It's performance art. Like, I love it. It's like, and
it's something.
I mean, because the thing for me was like, if I were the one doing that, you'd come to my show. I'd be like, boom, and I'd be like, oh shit, sorry, that wasn't right. Like, let me start over, right? Like, I would have so many mistakes because he looks like he's just like splatting. Like, how do you splat?
But also dancing.
My splats don't do that. My splats don't do that, damn it. Okay, so you all listen to me, okay? You're gonna put some respect, okay? Not with no T.
All right.
You put some respect on David Garibaldi's name.
I won't.
Because Flo Kofer was entertained.
Well, I'm gonna splat you an upside down.
Yeah, we're gonna have to agree to
RBG.
disagree on that one, Flo.
Yeah.
I don't see what the problem was. Like, I thought you were gonna tell me like he was a total jerk there, and he was like, "Fetch me more water," and he was like, "Thor, another," and breaking things. Like, I didn't think.
I mean, he is totally up his own ass. We're getting off on a little tangent here.
Okay, yeah.
I've met
we
his
needed a moment
staff.
of levity.
I don't
We can
think
get
they're the
back.
greatest
We can get
people in the Garibaldi space. Anyway.
Okay, we needed a moment of levity.
So-
Black joy is important.
What do you think about that
Literally
piglet
is
thing outside of Doco? Are you a big fan of that thing?
Yeah, can we let's talk. Let's have a
No.
little art.
What other
Let-
whack
let me
artists
tell
are you
you.
into?
Missing the mark is my shit, okay? Missing the mark. The fact that they actually let an artist put little missed arrows around the literal target of Golden One Arena. So if you're if you're doing an aerial shot, you see the Golden One Arena, and then you see all of these like darts around it that just missed the mark. You want to talk about subversive? And the city paid for that shit.
Yeah, I love it. That's one of my favorite pieces.
It's like
She's not
paying
as
somebody to
radical.
come to your house and paint "fuck you" on the side of your house.
And then you're like, art.
And then you give
I
them
love
like,
it.
what was that thing? Like $8 million or something that we paid some fucking dude from New York
Okay,
to
so
do our
now,
like Sacramento fucking art installation.
so you're you're talking about the
you guys,
piglet.
you
She's
guys.
talking about missing the mark.
Okay.
And
Piglet
this
sucks.
is like
Piglet was basically Mark Friedman's grandma or his mom, who's a multimillionaire. The entire family's multimillionaires. She really wanted some piece by this artist, and the Friedman family basically got the city to put a few million down on it if they paid for like X%. So that's how that happened. Friedman was the developer of the arena.
Nice.
so everybody is just trying to be really expensive in their ability to say "fuck you" to Sacramento, because between that and the missing the mark,
I don't think.
all of
But the thing,
the art we're paying for is making us look terrible.
Friedman's mom really thought that like a fucking cartoon, like 5-year-old drawing of a piglet that's 30 feet tall would be like beautiful. So like
Honestly,
that was
No.
inadvertent fuck
I don't
you.
believe that.
the closest thing
believe
that
If you know
installation
the
has
Freedoms,
ever
or
come.
the Freedmans, you definitely the Freedoms. We should call them.
There's
that.
an asshole in every family, and I'm putting my money on her. And she was taught to do right because she was a woman of a certain age. She was like, my dying wish.
Grandma is in chaotic evil mode. Okay, maybe.
Yes.
The closest thing that installation has ever been to like an actual art piece that says something interesting is right after the first night of George Floyd protests when they just ACAB'd the shit out of it, fucking wrote F12 and FTP all over it for like 12 hours before a bunch of assholes came in and scrubbed it all off. That thing was actually fucking cool looking for like a little while.
I just don't believe that this person actually thought this was like highbrow art that would improve the aesthetic of like in my
It's perfect
spirit
for Doko. I mean,
I
it is
don't
absolutely
believe
perfect
that.
for
I
the.
don't
We have
I
a few
will not.
mutual friends with the Freedmans. I will connect you with those mutual friends.
That's
She
how
definitely
rich
thought this
people
was a good
say
piece.
fuck you. They pretend it's a good idea.
Okay,
Like
man.
I don't believe half the to
No.
get us back on track.
Do you think rich people have any fucking taste?
No, what I think
That's
though,
what's
is that-
happening.
No, but I think they
It's not
lie.
any disdain for the city. They're just dumb and they have no taste.
No, I think they lie and pretend they don't know what's going on about things. And
All right,
that's
next
how
week
they
on the
get
show,
over it.
Mark Friedman and his mother.
Let's get Garibaldi in that one too.
And
won't
David
tell you.
Garibaldi. I want him to do an upside down painting of me.
David, I have a
We
question
can do
for
that for
you.
the intro.
Why are you so whack? Explain in detail.
She won't
And he'll be
won't
like-
tell us. She won't
Be
tell
like-
us that like that's what she did because that's the whole ruse of it, right? Just like Steinberg's never gonna be like, yeah, I just hated council meeting, right? Like you don't tell the truth, you make it seem nice, right? And you make it seem like it was in your best interest and that this was a good faith engagement. That's how rich people say fuck you, right? That's how this happens. That was a fuck you to Sacramento and respect.
Flo, I think we're in an impasse
Isn't it
here.
like the? Isn't it sort
There's
of like
no-
that
these-
fable, like the emperor has no clothes or whatever?
That's what I'm thinking.
These are molten takes, man.
And
I'm
I
really
think-
into it.
I think the person who came up with the emperor had no clothes was like, fuck this emperor. I don't think it was a scam artist. I think that was intentional. Like, these motherfuckers are stupid enough to let this fool come out here and be butt-ass naked, running up and down the streets. I believe it. I believe it in my spirit.
I guarantee the day that you and
And they
meet
got
Friedman's
paid, so-
mom, she will be dressed like fucking Eeyore, and like
That's
she'll be a
point.
Winnie the Pooh super fan, and she like that's why we have a piglet downtown.
And that was a long game ruse to make you all really believe she committed to this so that in perpetuity, that pig would sit in front of Sacramento.
Why are you defending this old money fucking person?
And
right now?
Garibaldi. Let's not forget that part.
Garibaldi is a national treasure out there.
He did. He went to Obama's White House, and I'm sure he painted Obama probably upside down. Like he definitely was invited to the White House.
This art speaks to me. I find it interesting, intriguing.
That's my face.
I love
I
it.
didn't know it
I
was my
love
face
it.
until just now.
I love, like, how dare you? How dare you? David, call me, okay? I'm inviting you to my next party, and you can paint some really cool stuff, and I will appreciate it, okay? No telling for taste.
He gave some money to the campaign against Anne-Marie Schubert, so I'll credit him for that.
All right, that is cool. That's cool.
I showed up
Credit
at
where
his
credit's due.
See?
art gallery before my like Tuesday drinks with some friends because it was right across from where I go and get my Tuesday drinks. And he just had like one employee there, and she was like getting drunk off wine on a couch, and there was lit candles everywhere, and it's like 5:30 p.m. And I'm like, hey, and she's like, hi. And like that was like, I'm like, so is David Garibaldi here? Like, and she's like, nah. And like, and I was like, oh, Okay.
Okay.
Well, I got some questions for him. I'm like doing a story on like, this
Bullshit.
race, and like he put some money towards this, and I gave her my card, and she's like, okay. And then I left, and that was it. And that made me hate Sacramento art.
And that right
immediately
there
after
was
that.
the moment that Dave said, "I don't mess with David Garibaldi."
And then-
There are
And then I
Sacramento
left.
artists I love, and including the woman who did "Missing the Mark." There's a
Who
few that
doesn't?
yeah,
And
But-
Mark Friedman's mom. Shout out to Dave.
but my Garibaldi moments were less than satisfactory.
Well, and he ran you over in his gold-plated Bentley, right? Right after that. That couldn't have made you feel good.
Well, we are still in court on that, so I can't comment.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Oh, okay. All right. Yikes. Okay. But I am holding the poll for where we were going with this, and where we were going was that Dave was telling a story. I'm still staked in the storm. We had all the fun. Dave was telling a story about how you were at an event and David Garibaldi was painting.
Right. This was the
That's
day.
where we were.
Whoa.
Boom.
That's some
Boom.
mental acuity that most of us don't have in our mid-30s. So, and I was standing next
Shannon,
to.
come back.
I was standing.
I'm not the mom of the group. I'm overcompensating. Go on, Dave.
Right. So I'm standing next to my arch enemy, who two of you know who that is, at this event, and I'm watching David Garibaldi do an upside down painting of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I get a text. This literally was happening, like, and I get a text about what Daryl Steinberg said in response to.
We're losing Sadalia.
We're losing, literally.
I'm all right. I'm all right.
Face.
Y'all are shady, but I'm all right.
Oh my god!
Continue.
So you know who I'm talking about. And no, I got a text on what Daryl said, and that like infuriated me.
Yeah,
And
because it was infuriating.
in the next couple hours, we're getting little like, things from SAC PD like, oh, he had a toolbar. First they said he had a gun. Then they're like, oh, he had a toolbar.
Mhm.
And everyone in media is like,
A what?
is a toolbar? Because it's not a thing. Then it turned out he had
Crowbar?
nothing.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, they just said toolbar. Yeah. Again, that's them
I
just like
remember that.
scurrying to cover their asses.
yeah.
And,
Yep.
and I remember being very mad, and then very sad, and then like all everything. You all remember March 2018, the dam burst, really, and I don't think I've ever been a part of or covered something that was so like painful and raw, and I've never there was a feeling that like there was a deep understanding of the injustice. And it was one of those moments that like, it didn't matter how many conservatives tried to dig into this person's past or this or that. It was just like, this was wrong. This was wrong. And I don't think I've ever seen a community up close mourn and process the way that we did Stephon Clark here in Sacramento. I guess my question is, do you still like David Garibaldi? No.
Weak.
Dave.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
David. Seriously.
David, actually, that was a low blow. I'm sorry. No, it like, can you, like, as people who've been fighting this for over 2 years now, can you walk us through that day through today a little bit in as much time as you know you have?
Yeah. So again, going back to context, I just kind of sit myself in the fact that the work that we're doing, it might be more nuanced, maybe a little newer, probably a little more strategic, but ultimately in the grand scheme of like the Black experience in America, it's just a small part of like this larger picture of this larger narrative. And this is just sort of your contribution to it. I remember like one of the things that always pop up is like, oh, well, back in the 60s, because everybody goes back to that thinking like, oh, well, that was the civil rights movement. Like there was like America kind of came together and decided that we're going to address all these wrongs. And it wasn't like that. It was very similar to what's going on now. But folks are always like looking back at that time, and they have like their idols, and MLK and Malcolm X. You have like these pieces of these folks and you romanticize them. But like the harder question is like, even if you were actually living in that time, if you're on the streets, like what would you have done? Would you have stayed at home? Would you have criticized folks for marching? Would you been activated? Would you try to join in these arguments or in the organization? Like what piece on the chessboard would you be?
Right.
So so I usually go back to that context, like if my parents, grandparents, great-great-grandparents, like if they've lived through all this, then I can take the next day. I can make the next action. I can figure something out in the future. So even distilling that down into like the last 2 years, I'm not gonna lie, like there's just some times where it's really, really hard. Like you just sit there and you're just like, I'm stuck. I'm fighting this fight that's beyond me, that's beyond a single generation, and we're still making the same chants, the same demands, and nothing's really happening because it's the same. And it hurts. Like and also I think the pandemic isn't helping either, because you're stuck in sort of the same four walls, and there's just a lot of the same. And if anything, you just have to make sure you focus and figure out what's your way of getting unstuck, and whether that's just like trying to like step aside and not process things for a little while. Like you have to do your self-care bit. But I feel like I do that, but I also kind of sit and daydream and strategize about like, okay, given where the pieces are on the board, given what the board is, like what's another way to think about this? What's another avenue that we can go about trying to bring about these changes? And maybe it's not even me trying to think of some things, like just happen to your community. So I am really lucky that I have folks like Flo, and Flo just always seems to have like a new idea. And like in Mean Girls, when Regina George like drives up and she's like, get in, we're going shopping. Like Flo is my Regina George. She'll ride up on me. She's like, get in, we're breaking down the government. I'm like,
Girls for life.
I got you.
For real. I like that one.
Smooth rolls up on me. Like I swear, every time she smooth rolls up on me, like especially when I'm feeling stuck, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm in like this terrible oversized pink polo, and like it's gonna take me out shopping, and we're gonna fix this, and we're gonna address this head on. So
that's a Mean Girls deep cut right there. The over.
Yeah. We're going hard on the Mean Girls references during this.
Listen. Watch it.
Yes, ma'am.
Like David Garibaldi, you won't be disappointed.
Mean Girls is good. Garibaldi, still not a fan.
But yeah,
this is going to shut me out of so many rooms in Sacramento, and I kind of love it.
Is Garibaldi like the last thing now? It's not.
Yeah, he's the Soban of Gen X. And everyone loves David Saban. So.
Well,
yeah,
that's the joke, folks.
Oh, okay. That was like those last couple articles.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we've
Sorry
covered
about
him a bit
Yeah.
at Voices as well. Anyway, yeah, so that's where you are with it. Flo, as the Regina George of this metaphor, where are you?
Oh, hilarious. So, for me, it's the last couple of years are really strange. In part because sometimes I kind of feel like I'm watching a movie of my own life, and there's a parallel universe where I was just like an epidemiologist who was trying to do fun things and trying to, kind of live. I don't know if there ever is a normal life, but don't you imagine yourself living it? Like, you don't imagine that like really consequential things are going to happen that you're a part of or you're bearing witness to. You just imagine that like that happens to people somewhere else and you just kind of like go about your day. So for me, that's been my experience, because the past 2 years has really been a deep dive for me in terms of institutions, and in terms of how they interact with us. And really, I think the last 2 years has served to kind of radicalize me in some ways. Because I don't feel like my values or my politics changed, but I feel like my tactics and my strategy and my,
as a close friend,
my disillusionment, like my disillusionment with just like how things are,
or your like perception of like how the powers that be politics actually dictate their decisions.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, before I was like, I would love to live in a place where there was, from Truth and Reconciliation in South Africa, like I've always been we should do restorative justice. We should have reparations. We should abolish the criminal justice system. Like I was a, early new Jim Crow adopter. Like, I like, as these things were kind of like, as there was more scholarship and they became more popular, I was definitely like an adopter of those. So it wasn't that changed, but it was like no, really, and I'm not usually this like philosophically clear, but like, no, really, there's not much to redeem here. And these systems have a root cause problem that's not going to be able to be, there are times that you can get a sling and you can kind of get by even though you needed arm surgery, right? But there's no sling for this. Like this is an amputation. This is, your leg is rotting and this is it's got to go, right? And so it was interesting because, I've talked about this a little bit, publicly on my Facebook page at times when policy came up, but in 2018, I had an ectopic pregnancy. And so I was like out for my husband's birthday and boom, like I'm in devastating pain, have no clue. I have an IUD at the time. So, the last thing on my mind is thinking that there's some way in hell I could be pregnant. And so we end up in the ER in the Bay Area and, they're doing all the intake tests and, they, I obviously have to give a urine sample and the like doctor comes back in and she's like, well, congratulations, you're pregnant. And Tareen and I just looked at each other and Tareen was kind of like, what the, no, us. And I was looking like, oh shit, I finally figured out what is happening to me right now, because I had, epidemiologist, I had diagnosed myself. I was like, okay, my appendix is possibly going to have to go out, or I had all these other, because I hadn't considered pregnancy as an option. And so I'm like, oh shit. And then I'm looking at the ER doctor like, you know what I came in here for. I have this major pain in my side and you're telling me that I'm pregnant and I'm giving you the stupid face. That means this is not a congratulations moment. This is not a viable pregnancy. Like I'm about to have surgery. This is a life-threatening situation. Like had I not come here, right? Like had I not come here tonight, I'd be dead, right? you know, my background is in maternal and child health. And so here I am in a hospital where I know no one, with what now I believe is an incompetent doctor, right? Who can't even fucking read the room, let alone, you know, and literally after that said, well, maybe not, it's not good news. What the fuck? Like, I was just like, I don't even understand. Like, what if we're not in a relationship? What if this is who trained you, right? So, and I'm in this, you know, foreign place. And so this is end of February. And what ends up happening is that everyone's nightmare. You know, I have the surgery, you think it has gone well, but my HCG levels were not going down afterwards. And it turned out they didn't get all of the tissue. And so I was continuing along in this life-threatening situation. And so about 2 weeks later, on March 15th, I went to my doctor, a Black doctor who loves me and is a friend. And she I had to drive all the way to Chico because she didn't even practice in Sacramento. But I was like, I'm going to someone who I know cares about my life, and is going to make sure that I live through this. And so it was a really scary time. And so I was just coming down from that. As you know, so surgery is March 15th. So overnight, I wake up on March 16th. I finally feel like myself again, because parents out there, those pregnancy hormones were a bitch. I felt like a different person. And as soon as like the surgery was over, I felt like me again. And so, you know, had all this anxiety, all of this, like I'm interfacing with these institutions that I know firsthand have racism problems, and I'm having things that don't feel competent, even if they didn't feel overtly racial, but I know that that's not how racism works, right? And so all of this is happening, and then I'm finally in recovery mode and starting to try to figure out how to pick my life back up since February 26th. And here comes this Stephon Clark thing. And you know, this man is murdered, right? And I'm literally a day into my recovery, and here this happens. And so I have nothing but time because I'm at home, I'm not working. And you know, I'm going through, like, I just had all these pregnancy hormones, right? So I'm going through the, like, that was somebody's child. I'm going through the, like, what pain was he in? Because I just experienced the worst pain of my life, right? Like, you know, all of these, like, very visceral emotions. And then sort of seeing people really activating on the streets and feeling like, I gotta get out. I gotta get out the house. And so my friends were furious with me, because I was like, I gotta get out. And they were like, girl, if you don't sit your butt down and recover and rest. And I did it first. And then really, as things were ramping in, there was just like gaffe after gaffe. I honestly think it was when, you know, Mayor Steinberg said, like, well, you know, and then things just kept happening over and over again. The story kept changing. You know, it was this, it was that. No, it's no, we don't know. Then the footage comes out, and then people are really dissecting what actually happened. And by then, you know, now a few days have gone by, and I'm just like, all right, we really have to get out there and move. And I think for me, the handling of that and the aftermath just kind of exposed things for me. And made plain some issues that
exposed the city.
Yeah, I think it exposed all of these things that were like just below the surface, and ripe for exposure, right? And all it took was like a national spotlight, and everybody kind of having eyes on Sacramento for it to become really glaringly obvious as cockroaches started scattering the moment that happened. And so I guess, you know, fast forwarding through the last 2 years for me is sort of tied up in the way that Black lives are devalued. I think it tied up for me the way that even when you have a safe network of people who love and care for you, it you know, in a moment's notice, things can drastically change. I think it tied up for me this idea that you know, even though people say they have the same values, they're really on very different pages about what should happen. And that one of the challenges, I think, of oppression is that sometimes it even dampens people's dreams, right? And just limits what you think is possible. And so I really had to reflect on, like, how much of that was true for me, how much pragmatism is just hope that's deaded, because we all know that most good ideas that take root weren't the first time somebody had them. It's the first time the opportunity opened itself, right? But there were tons of people who said it and did it before, and those people paved the way, even if they weren't successful, to getting ultimately what happened, right? They made it less radical. They made it less. And so who are we not to be brave, and who are we not to give voice to the things that the dreams of ours that scare us because they're so that they're that damn good, right? The things that it was just like, woo, that would be amazing. And so I think for me, it was kind of an unveiling of just how much you know about socialization, but how much I had been socialized into sort of buying the hype of what's possible, buying the hype of what matters, buying the hype of what's valuable. And it's been a process to have to reckon with sort of how you see the world and have that shift in so many ways, but sort of in a very similar direction in a really short span of time in terms of my lifetime, especially.
I completely agree with Flo. And even while she was talking, I was reflecting back, like, about thinking about like limitations of what you consider what's possible, and like the heavy pragmatism that like it seems like we both kind of experienced before like Sacramento blew up because of Stephon Clark's murder. And if anything, I just want to like take a bit to like speak to any sort of like legislative staffer right now, because I was a legislative staffer in the Capitol when Stephon Clark was murdered. And I definitely remember like when the news blew up and like folks were literally marching in the streets. They were walking to the conventions or to the Golden One Center, and they were shutting down the Capitol early, and like the sergeants were on guard. It was a really busy time. And I remember sitting there thinking like, you know what, I am sitting in one of the most powerful buildings in the most powerful space, working for a really influential person with other influential people, and I feel powerless right now. Like I can't, because like we're in the middle of session, and at that point it hadn't gotten the huge national attention quite yet. But so like I was just kind of stuck, like since it wasn't necessarily national news, this was like only like Senator Pan's issue or Assemblymember Jim Cooper's issue. Like it was a very district specific still. Right. So it was like, well, even if I did bring it up, I did like send out emails letting like my supervisors know like this is a thing, we should like engage or at least monitor this and whatnot. So, but I just remember feeling some hopelessness there. I was just like I have a really great career so far. I'm just really getting started, but like the one thing that I really do care about, I can't do anything about, because their priorities already been set. The bills are already moving. The Capitol, for the most part, is already shut down. And I can't really do anything. But the one thing I can do is march out of the building and into the street. And that was ultimately where I met the folks who made up the table. And that's, I guess, like in history kind of goes with that. But it was, if anything, those last 2 years, like I already had like my like student activist edge from going to UC Davis, and my first quarter was the pepper spray incident. And like that was my initial radicalization. I feel like the next one happened because of Stephon Clark, because just knowing that like I have this foot in the door here, and I was proud of the work that I was doing, because I did do a lot of great work when it came to addressing like some criminal justice reform, which I now like loathe that term, but it was really good work. And then, you know, and all those other bits. And I was really proud of my career at that point. But at the same time, I was just like, there's something missing here where like you can't activate when something bad happens, and you're just kind of waiting and kind of like hoping that maybe other folks will hop on.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's not just other folks. You're just hoping like the folks who actually have the power and influence to do anything about it will hop on.
Right.
And you're just kind of sitting there waiting and watching the momentum build, and you're just like, when do we tap in? When does that happen?
Right.
Go ahead, Sky.
I was just going to say, like, one of the things that keeps rattling around in my head, like watching the same shit happen over and over and over again, and watching people like criticize like property damage and you know, quote unquote rioting and whatnot, and like tone police protesters. Like, the thing that I don't understand is like what people think is going to happen. Like, what is the outcome that you see? Because we live in a country where the police kill an unarmed black guy like every week, it seems like. They almost never face any consequences for it. People have been in the street protesting this literally for like decades, maybe a century, right? And the cops respond to protests about police brutality by brutalizing all the protesters. So I do not understand what's going on in the mind of these people who are like, well, they're blocking the freeways though, and that could, you know, slow down a fire truck or whatever. And it's like, dude, you should be lucky that this whole fucking town isn't burning to the ground. What do you've taken all of the options away. There are no options, and you can't be like, oh, well, vote in the change you want to see, because all the fucking city leadership are Democrats. Who are you going to fucking vote for? You're not going to vote your way out of this shit. So like what it really is to me, like it seems like polite society is being given a pretty generous fucking offer right now, which is to start like punishing police officers who break the fucking law, and maybe we can start a fucking dialogue, right? I mean, and that is like, that in my opinion is more than generous. Like, that's way more than polite society deserves as a choice, but they're getting it, and they're fucking slapping that hand away over and over and over and over again. I do not understand what these fucks think is coming down the pipeline if this shit continues in the way that it's going. I really don't know.
Civil War.
Lovely, Flo.
Yeah. Oh, and Flo, I watched what was that? The Social Dilemma, that movie. Yeah, and I was like, Flo was right. Like, it did scare me. And then even like the guy on there was talking about he was worried about Civil War, and the more that time passes, I really don't see it. The first Civil War was about the fight over Black lives. Why would the second one be any different at this
How's
point?
it any different?
Racialized capitalism.
One thing I do hope, and I think will happen, is even if a Biden wins, we still fucking make his life a living hell. Like, we fucking go at them.
I think.
Well, but be prepared to go up
We
against.
have to keep fighting.
Be prepared to go up against the same people who are like criticizing, you know, looters and rioters, quote unquote.
Yes.
Those are the people who you're going to be battling with then,
Yes.
because the fucking Republicans won't be like even kind of relevant anymore.
I love to
We'll be dealing with the new conservatives who are the Daryl Steinberg conservatives.
The
Right,
thing is,
and who are telling us that
conservatives
defund
are weak, and we can break them. And
yes,
we will break
but
them.
they will definitely be telling us that defund is bad publicity. I mean, we should really
Break
name
them.
that something else,
Break
right?
them.
And people
Like-
have told me that. That's a real thing. That whole talking point, like, oh, you can't say that, or what? How come you can't say it differently? I'm just like,
Flo and I have
why
a
would
very
you?
good friend.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't even gotten to the place where I'm willing to like you know really drag people, but I'm like, this what you're saying doesn't make good sense, right? And you do realize like that in the grand scheme of things, you sound ludicrous. Like, you are tone policing people. You sound like the people who were literally saying, I mean, just don't do it so fast in the 60s. Or, I mean, like, but what about people throughout history? That's who you are right now, saying like, this is just a bad language. Like, there's no good thing to call it. They called it civil rights, and people felt the same way about it that they feel about Black Lives Matter. That's beside the fucking point. Nobody is actually arguing that all lives matter. What they're telling you is fuck you.
Right.
Just like what Mark Frieden's mom said to Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will not address this right now.
I want to jump in real quick and say that, like, I think I've said this on the show before, but like this is a time to reiterate it. I think, like, if you ever look, because we've all decided as a society that like the work of Dr. King was good work and the civil rights movement was good. And so there's no white liberal who's going to like disagree with that sentiment. But I think like the thing is that the thing to really like look in the mirror and ask yourself is like people, you know, because everybody like Sadalia was saying earlier, like you think about like, oh, if I was there when that was happening, like what would I have been? Where would I have been on the chessboard? And the answer to that is that you're doing it right now. So if you are on fucking Facebook tone policing protesters and saying, look, I don't want black guys to keep getting killed by cops either, but like small businesses don't deserve. If that's what you're doing, that's what you would have been doing. That you would have been on fucking Facebook criticizing Dr. King and all the people fucking protesting with them and saying, I understand why they're mad, but this just isn't the way to do it. That's exactly what you would, that's exactly who you would have fucking been. And that's who history will bear you out to fucking be.
Well, we talked about this on our special episode, which is going to be published for patrons, I guess, on Sunday. But like histories like Martin Luther King's or like Helen Keller's, they get whitewashed, they get blue washed,
sanitized,
they get sanitized,
deified.
They get deified. When people don't know that these were people who were actually anti-capitalist. These were people who were like, no, like we have to fight this racism head on. And that means some very serious shit, you know? And I think that's a thing too, that like the people today, they don't understand that the defund the police people are the Martin Luther King people. They don't get that.
Yeah, these guys live in a world where like Dr. King was like a beloved celebrity when he was doing his work. Yeah. That ain't how it fucking was.
Yeah. They killed him.
Yeah. And they killed him.
And nobody would be more surprised that he has a day named after him than him himself. Like, I can't just imagine what would happen if he were like resurrected and was like, they named the day after who? Now, who said I was a champion of the what? Like, he would be shocked. No one would be more shocked than him.
And he would be even more shocked to know that at one point, McDonald's had his face on like their placemats at one point. Like they had like a whole that. MLK 365. Yeah, they had all that.
McDonald's like, hosts the MLK speech. Will you come and recite his sanitized history about how he wanted everybody to hold hands? That's what Dr. And he would be shocked.
That's the most modern American lib bullshit I've ever heard in my life.
He would be shocked.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Or they would use his words to advocate against like stuff like affirmative action, like Prop 16 that's on the ballot right now. The opposition is using his words against something he would have obviously supported.
You know what I'm waiting for? What I'm really waiting for is because he gets sanitized, and I think the other high profile like global figure that gets sanitized like this is Nelson Mandela. And I can't wait for one of these like shallow digging, lie-ho, high profile Republicans to be like, don't you break the law, be like Mandela, right? And I'm just gonna be like, it's in. We have achieved expert status. I'm done. Like, I cannot wait for it because he has been sanitized into this like sage old man who just says wise things in a non-American accent. And I cannot wait for somebody to use him as an example and talk about how he was a rule follower and he led the people to freedom, because that will be the pinnacle for me. I will have seen the mountaintop. And that will be it for me.
By the way, LIHO, I have to translate this for everyone Flo talks to. Low information, high opinion.
But also,
I like that.
LIHO.
I've never heard that before.
But also LIHO, right?
Like, hell yeah, LIHO.
Because you LIHO.
Hell yeah.
Because you.
I mean, they're low information and high opinion.
It's implied. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Great.
No, that sounds like this entire era that we're living through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't even think we need to dive into legislation right now. I think this is
pretty
lightning
good.
round? Do we do a
more
lightning
than
round?
enough of a beautiful episode where we discuss really at its root an issue. Unless anyone else has something else or another question for Sadalia.
Sadalia.
Uh-oh.
A while ago, you experienced an injury. Can you tell us how that happened?
I will fight you. I will fight Flo. Like, that's all there's to it.
I believe I saw you on a one-legged scooter to the tune "Riding Dirty."
Yeah, were you?
Yeah, what was that about?
We're inquiring minds want to know questions that need answers.
Two-part question. Who saw you rolling and why were they hating?
Please expound.
Expound, please.
At 2, Skylar.
Hey, I got to deal with Flo after this show is over, so.
Some claws in the mix.
Are terrible.
Guys, I don't want to bring the tone of the show down, but while we're on the topic of things that are tragedies that have been going on for a really long time, I'm out of work right now. But here's the thing. Here's the good news. I've been using the time to troll through the internet in search of the rare perfect take. And I find them here and there because I have all this time to kind of run around through Twitter with my arms out, feeling all the takes out, knocking down the ones that are bad, grabbing the ones that are good. But it is a hassle. And honestly, I should probably be looking for a job instead of doing that. But I also need perfect takes. So I wanted to ask you guys if you knew of like sort of a streamlined place that I could go to where I can get all the perfect takes that I need, but like still maybe free up some time, to take care of a problem that's been happening for a little while here. Can anybody help me with this search for perfect content?
If you don't mind, I think I'm going to field this. First of all, Skylar, very sorry to hear about your job situation.
Thanks.
Terrible.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
First, I'm hearing about it, and I'm really.
I almost didn't bring it up. But then I was like, no, I'm gonna trust these guys with my, with this level of vulnerability that I'm feeling right now. I'm glad I did. It feels good.
It means a lot, and I think we're all a little closer because of it. 6.5 months into the pandemic, but one thing I will say is I can pull one stressor off of your plate. I believe I have the place that you can find perfect take after perfect take after perfect take, and that place is called voicesrivercity.com.
I heard that was just a legend. An old wives' tale that couldn't possibly really be a real place.
Voices exists, and I've seen it. Just today, I shared an essay from an anonymous person on Smash Mouth and global warming from 2017. So we really do cover the gamut of issues. Voices River City. We've done news, we've done arts coverage, comedy, as is that Smash Mouth piece. That's still one of my favorites ever.
Was Smash Mouth the group that performed at that COVID rally thing?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Okay. We wouldn't be covering. We shan't be covering them any longer. But this was back when they were in their heyday in 2017.
Lots changed.
I ended up interviewing their keyboardist. We have a great Q&A with me and their keyboardist at Voices. Like this was the heyday of Smash Mouth. one of the funniest things I've ever done. Apparently he's from Stockton.
Mhm.
I'm getting us off track. We've done a lot of news and arts coverage. Has nothing to do with Smash Mouth Voices.
I was just honestly shocked.
Uh,
To hear
we-
Smash Mouth.
Sorry,
I was like, wait.
Shannon.
yeah.
Sorry, Shannon. We tried. We tried.
We
Yeah,
need
we're
to cover.
trying.
There's a video that exists that I have seen of the lead singer angrily leaving the stage while the rest of the band is trying to play "Hey Now You're an All-Star" because they're playing a county fair and the crowd will not stop throwing their hot dogs onto the stage.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. Wow.
And it's this dude berating the crowd while his band is behind him, just going burn. Folks,
Folks, we'll be putting this in
And
the
it's like
show
raining hot
notes.
dogs.
Somebody wants some. Wow. SAC Follows the Money Project. We're covering where the money is going in Measure A and Measure C currently. We might be doing other things, but really, like, SAC Snark he's lit a fire under me. He's just sending me the spreadsheets and he's like, dude, please publish these. And I'm like, okay. So we're doing those. And, you know, Voices has always been about just transparency in government. Obviously, we are a leftist org, but numbers don't lie in one direction or another. And that's a really beautiful thing about the Follow the Money Project. We're going to have some interesting people on the next few weeks. So stick around. You know, we've got Jackie Fielder running against Wiener out in San Francisco for state Senate on the next episode. And then 2 other local
I
races.
really love that you have that project too, because especially given the fact that, yeah, I work in politics, but also like the party dynamics that I'm involved with. When you really take a look at the money, you'll understand why things are the way they are. Like,
Yeah. And
it's
it
just
doesn't-
like literally drawing a direct line from A to B.
And that D next to your name can mean many, many different things these days. And I think that's what's really
Yes.
interesting.
And I
like,
think
that's
also
ahead.
Sacramento is a really good microcosm of that, because like sort of like California as a whole, like we all like to pretend or like believe that California is this wonderful blue state. Like we all know that Biden's gonna get California. We all know that like whatever Dem runs for whatever seat, they usually win. But when you take a closer look at that, there's a real spectrum happening here. There's grades to blue, and there's some real purpley stuff going on here. And so when you do, and also the other bit is that folks love to tack on the fact that they're a liberal or they're progressive, but come up with an issue, then all of a sudden they're not so liberal or not so progressive.
Or they would love to do the things that they need to be doing, but that's not how it works, and we need to take a more pragmatic approach.
I truly think that there is a realignment happening right now as far as political parties and politics go within the state. And it's happening.
So it's really up to the people. It's really up to the people to like activate and make these demands for their elected officials, because they're not going to do it on their own. Because their whole deal is like, okay, like who's helping me campaign? Because the campaign is everything. Like you have to get into office to make these decisions, and then once you get in, you want to stay there. So like they're primarily focusing on that end. So if folks don't show up, if they're not writing letters, if they're not making calls and they're not sending emails, if they're not contributing to the campaign directly, it's not going to get as much as attention. And that's where we're going to see, like, ultimately, like, police reform not being tackled, or any sort of accountability happening. And then we're also going to see who the real power players are. And again, going back to the police brutality bit, like, that's part of the reason, like, why our policies regarding criminal justice reform are ultimately driven by police unions and associations.
Yes. Yeah. I love that we've got great deep analysis happening in our pitch portion of the show.
Oh, sorry.
No. This is really this is great shit. Yeah. No, please.
No, I'm done. You keep going.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to highlight this one thing. There's one thing that I will say about like what's going on in the legislature is more campaign related. And part of the reason why I'm going to say it is because I said it on Twitter. So therefore, if I post it on Twitter, then I would say it to anybody's face.
Public.
That's honestly how I feel. Yes, super public. And essentially, it's about Assembly Member Reggie Jones Sawyer and the CCPOA. It's a Correctional Officers Association / union / whatever. And they posted a video of like it was sort of like a campaign video of sorts. They were just it was very sensationalized, I'll say. There was like this random dramatic scene where a woman was hemmed up against the wall by some man attacking her, and they were talking about how they're champions of public safety. But another scene that took place was that they had like a whole wall of folks who were elected in the legislature, and one of the folks they had on there was obviously the assembly member, and they had a target over his picture
Face. Yeah.
and his face, a picture of his face, and they had like a shot that was a little further away, and then they got up really close, but even on the shot further away, you can clearly see his name. Then they took another shot close up, and he's still like poking at him, and so you could get like a clear view of his name. And there was also another target on the wall, and that begs the question, who else are they targeting? But the deal was like throughout this video, you just see these older white passing men all in the room, and they're talking about how they're gonna like hold the legislature accountable, and that currently law enforcement's under a lot of distress because of current events and whatnot. But like ultimately what we're seeing here is that they're just being blatantly clear. This was signaling to their supporters, to their members, that that they're not going to take this sitting down. They are activated, they are taking funds, and they are targeting members who are doing some progressive stuff in the legislature. And Joe Sawyer is one of them. He is the chair of public safety, and he is considered one of the more progressive Democrats.
But he's gone to like fucking Europe
year.
with like some of these leaders of law enforcement to be like, hey, here's how they do it out here. This is just them being a bunch of assholes, right? Like,
exactly.
If you can let me rant a little bit.
Yeah, go off.
You say they're white passing. I say they look like thumbs in suits. Thumbs with little mustaches on them. So like a little mustache right here. These are the really like lowest common denominator people that have all of this money, and they spend all of their days just terrorizing inmates. And we have no transparency into the terror that they bring to our inmates in California. And like, I guess it probably, I don't need to say it, but there's a clear fucking racial dynamic there. These correctional peace officers are among the worst people in California. You have no idea what they're doing, and the only reason and the only way that we can find out what they're doing is that we make them wear body cams 100% of the time when they are at work. We need transparency in the work that they're doing. These are horrible people. Not only that, they are a very powerful lobby, just as Sadalia was saying. I can't speak enough to how disgusting they are. I mean, like I can speak to rumors of how much they juice themselves and stuff, which probably dives into their behavior and stuff, but I won't. But like, these are not great fucking people.
Yeah.
And I use that as an example because they were the ones that most recently were like the most blatant about who they are and what they are about. But and those are also the ones that I know of. I'm sure there's like a ton of other entities. They probably have like local systems that, because there's contracts to negotiate, and all these other things. And they're just one aspect of law enforcement. We still have like CHP, the local police department, county sheriffs, and up and down the state, but also throughout the country. So if anything, there's definitely levels to this. And it's just the piece where, yeah, it's going to take activism and all these bits, but we also have to understand like who we're really up against. And I think, yes, I would always advocate for folks to engage with their elected officials every single time. But the other piece that we do have to acknowledge is that the third house, and within the third house is these unions and associations that have active members that are actively participating, that are also making sure that the policies that we're marching for in these streets don't see the light of day, and they're very effective. So and folks are sort of like, okay, so if that is true, like what can we do about it? So and part of the folks that gave like asked me that question, they have family members who are in law enforcement. Like they have brothers, sons, husbands, cousins, whatever in law enforcement, and they're also Black. So my deal is that, okay, so homeboy is in the police department. That means he's an active member. He's paying dues to them. So like, why don't you tell him to get even more active? Like, why aren't you going to them or ask them to go to their unions and say like, well, enough's enough. As a Black man, I can't agree with this anymore, and tell their representatives that they want to see something different. Organize within. See if you can get Black officers to start saying Black Lives Matters instead of taking knees outside of churches and city council or wherever, or with church members. Rather than taking a knee there, why would you take a knee within your own organization and say that this is something that needs to change? Because a knee doesn't do anything for us out here. Your knee actually matters and has an impact within your organization, or the organizations that are associated with your job. Like, so because these little photo ops and stuff literally does nothing for us. So and then also the part that kind of bugs me with all this is, again, me being context, is that law enforcement, they're, even though like they're a union and folks have concerns when I say like, well, I'm gonna get to that part. So folks have concerns when I start talking about like divest from unions, like trying to encourage like members not to accept campaign contributions, or even the party itself, like making that a thing. And folks get really nervous about that. And they also like, well, if you're telling us not to take from that union, then what's to stop you from taking from any unions? And I'm like, okay, that's not the argument that I'm making at all. Because some unions are good, and history will show that. Like if you look at the history of unions, they're mostly good. Like that's exactly. And also child labor isn't a thing. Like there's lots of things that came out of the labor unions.
Well, and the other thing to remember that's relevant here is that the people who got you those things didn't just ask for it politely or sing songs in the street.
They fought.
Never.
Literally.
Exactly.
No one
it
ever
was
found
social upheaval. But so yeah, so when you look at history, unions as a whole have been consistently on the right side of things. The one aspect that's also maintained the same position alongside of that was that police unions have not. Police has never been on the right side of anything regarding civil rights. From its foundation, it has always been wrong. And then, so when you're talking to me about civil rights and wanting to maintain order, we always go back to the MLK. MLK was getting he was getting beat up on front page newspapers by cops. It was batons. They were getting water hose. And then you expect me in the year of our Lord 2020 to allow myself to be intimidated or like throwing any sort of concern to a police officer or a union rep from a police union today? Like, I just don't understand that. But it's just mind-blowing to me.
Absolutely.
So if police unions ever want to get on the right side of this, if they want people to stop marching, if they want to stop being in distress, as that guy from the video mentioned from the Joan Sawyer bit, then like take the knee from inside and demand to see change. Because that's what the people are looking for. The people that you claim to want to protect, they're demanding protection from you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's my rant.
Our position on the show is that real unions should actively participate in crushing police unions and correctional peace officer guard unions. Actively participate
All
in
law
crushing
enforcement.
them. They are not unions. They are not your fucking friends. These are the worst people in the world that are really taking the most put upon people and putting their, they're really putting their weight on them, and it's not somebody that anyone should support.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they're actively protecting each other. Like that's that whole blue wall mess that they have going on.
And the DAs and the sheriffs protect them too.
Absolutely. And we saw that with Walter Scott, who was running away and he got shot a bunch of times in the back. And then the police said there was one thing and the media carried with that. And then the video came out and it was very clearly different. And then even now we're seeing that with Breonna Taylor, because these cops honestly think that was it was a clean situation. And the cop made a statement. He sent out like an email to 1,000 other police officers saying that it was right and moral or whatever. And like, so what? Like all of y'all are in agreement that this woman deserved to die, that Walter Scott deserved to die, that all these people deserve to die. You're allowed to kill these unarmed Black individuals and you get to keep your job. And then I have to keep staying in my place and nothing changes.
Right.
Buildings shouldn't burn. Everyone, like the folks who matter the most are comfortable, and that's all that needs to be maintained. Like I don't understand that how folks can really think like that. I don't understand like how we're supposed to be able to see this happen day after day, murder after murder, and then they're surprised like, oh my God, how could they burn down that building? How can they burn down a police precinct or two of them for that matter? Like why are they doing these things? I'm like, how can you sit at home watching TV and think that any of that, like what the police folks are doing is okay? But You're going to turn around and say that we're the problem. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree 1,000% with everything that you just said.
I passed the collection plate 3 minutes ago. We're racking up. So no, that's where I am.
You know where we all are on Twitter. You know who we all are. Patreon.com/VoicesRiverCity if you really want to throw some money down on us. But if you want to know where Sadalia is, Sadalia, do you have a place on the internet that people can find you?
Folks can find me on Twitter. It's at Sadalia King. It's S-A-D as in dove, A-L-I-A, K-I-N-G, like
Perfect.
the royal thing.
I am at Unokempa, Y-U-K-N-O-W-K-E-M-P-A.
You can find me at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, Y-O-U.
And I am at Flojaune, F-L-O-J-A-U-N-E. Can't say it as fast as Kempa. And Shannon is at Shan N.D. Stevens.
Sadalia, I loved having you on.
Yeah.
I love that you combo broke our fucking format.
Yeah, that's a Voices first, I think.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And yeah.
Y'all lucky I wasn't drinking.
No, God.
And I'm like, another thing.
And let me tell you. And you're like an old friend of mine that like, I don't think we've had a hangout since this all started. So I was like so happy to see you.
I know. The last time I saw, like, actually both of you was at the Nope thing. And they're like,
when we
who's
were on the
gonna...
panel, like Flo and I were being
Yeah.
very serious, like, well, leadership.
Yeah. Exactly. And then they're like, who's gonna, like, facilitate that discussion? I was like, yeah. This is my one.
Everyone on
This is
that
my one.
panel, didn't you?
Yeah. I think it was Paul Willis. He texted me like, "Are you like happy with the selection?" I was like, "What? You just went through my friends list? Like, what's going on here?"
Right.
But no, I was really, really proud to see y'all up there. That was really cool. And
That was
also,
fun.
no
For
one
listeners,
knew,
we talked with the current Nope class on the current power dynamic
class
in the
11,
city.
the best class.
Yeah. Oh God.
Not quite,
That's
but
why-
you know, it's COVID. It's COVID, so everybody's brain is on. We forgive you.
Yeah,
You're forgiven.
yeah.
Don't even worry about it. It's fine.
Maybe we
Sci-Fact
shouldn't have
says
had her
too.
on.
I'm not.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Scott,
not. I'm always gonna
girl.
rep the Rona class. Rona class 11,
All right.
double one.
007.
Yeah, I was
just,
really
like,
proud to see y'all up
shaking our
there.
heads. No, it was good to see you too.
Yeah, but thank you for asking me to be on here. I wasn't sure what to expect. I listened to many podcasts. I never thought to be on one, but y'all made it really easy, especially once the nerves went away.
Oh,
Yeah.
All
this
right.
is your first of many, I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
For sure.
see.
And next
I might
time,
start,
hopefully we're a full house next time. Hopefully,
Yeah.
Oh, I can't
like
wait.
Fingers
Shannon
crossed,
is.
Shannon.
Yeah.
Baby, come back.
We need you, Shannon.
yeah,
Heal quickly.
and I want the full house next time. I want Shannon and Flo here at the same time. No Hannah Montana mess. Correct.
I'll have to get the
Hannah
special effects
Montana.
teams on the phone.
I'm really glad we were able to hopefully give people some levity. I think you manifest what you need, and I needed some laughs tonight. This was pretty heavy, so thank you all for being willing to roll with it.
Thank you.
This was the medicine we needed. So hopefully it was for all the people who are listening.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's call
Speaking
it.
of all
Thanks
the
again,
people who are
Sadalia.
listening, thank you if you made it this far. Thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. And we want you to stay safe.
Stay sane
Stay healthy.
and stay the fuck away.
Woo!
All right, that's the show.